So in my last vlog, I talked about how some interesting things were happening in my dating life, but I didn't have enough time in that vlog to talk about it. So let's see where to begin. So as you, if you're watching this, you probably already know, although you might not if you're new here, I have 2 husbands and I'm still actively dating. I met the husband I've been with the longest. I've been with him for 11 years. We met in 2009. And we met on OkCupid, and we married in 2010. I moved 2,500 miles across the country to live with him after I had known him for a few months and had been completely taken with him. And that was one of the best decisions of my life. If you're another millennial like me watching this, like I'm 31, and if you don't have like a life partner yet and you want one, you need to like get on that right now. This is kind of a conversation I've been having with a number of my friends. Fertility is not going to wait, so if you're trying to have a baby, reality is that once you get to 40, the chances are you're not going to be able to have a baby, or you're not going to be able to have one without adoption or spending a lot of money on various treatments, and you still might not be able to manage it. So if you want a family, like, get on it, and if you want a life partner and you don't have one yet, you have to make a priority shift. You have to spend time learning what makes a good relationship and how to maintain one and how to meet the right person. There's a lot of learning to be done there, and you don't want to put that off. I mean, yes, you could find true love when you're 50 or 70, and that could be great, and I know some couples who met later in life and they're very happy, but, if you want that partner soon, then you have to make changes soon. But I digress. So, in the last few years, I've had a few dates here and there. I still maintain active profiles online, and occasionally I'll get a message that's of real interest, and occasionally it'll lead to a date. So recently I had something, over the course of this autumn, I had an experience that really seemed like it was leading somewhere. Yeah, so I met this guy. He looked okay, he wasn't ugly, which is an important thing. I don't find most men or people in general super attractive right off the bat, and the few that I do are in the upper 0.01% of attractiveness. So it's really just not realistic to expect that I'm going to be compatible emotionally, sexually, intellectually, lifestyle-wise, with people who are already in this tiny slice of the most attractive people on the planet. Of course, everybody used to be more attractive back when everybody used to be healthier and live close to the land. I'm talking before the agricultural revolution, when people started eating lots of seeds and rotting their teeth and destroying their gut, and okay, that could be a long digression. Yeah, at least also before the advent of processed sugar, people were generally more attractive. They had better skin and stuff like that. Anyway, I met this guy, and he was attractive enough. He was attractive enough that I knew that if I fell in love with him, I would find him very handsome at that point, because neurotransmitters make everybody beautiful, or at least they make them a hell of a lot more beautiful than they were. He lived a little bit of a drive from me, but he was willing to drive, so that worked out. On our first date, he asked me so many really thoughtful, interesting questions, and I kind of thought maybe I was going to fall for him. I kind of thought maybe I was falling for him, because when he asked me these interesting questions, it really got me to introspect, and I enjoy introspection. So this guy was really good at asking a lot of really good questions, because he was new to polyamory, and he was curious about that, and he wanted to kind of, as he put it, know what he was getting into, which is smart, really smart, actually. And he also had some recent dating experiences where he learned a lot about what wasn't really working for him and what he really needed, what he was looking for. So he knew good questions to ask, and this is actually something I'd recommend. If you really want a life partner and you really want it to work out, have good questions lined up. Know what you're looking for and know what kind of questions are going to reveal the type of character that you want. So just asking people what they're passionate about might give you an interesting answer. I think that's a great question to use on people in general when you're just socializing, but if you want to really get into a lifelong relationship, you need to ask a lot more really unique questions, but they have to be based on what your values are. So one of the questions I asked Lytenian, my husband of 11 years, way back in one of our early video chats was, what would he do if I had cheated on him? And this is a really revealing question because, people who say, well, I would just leave because nobody's cheating on me. That's not good life partner material because that person doesn't know how to resolve conflict. That person doesn't know how to create a resilient relationship. That person believes that if somebody cheated on them, it's an attack. It means that they don't have a lot of emotional wisdom about the real causes of why somebody might do that. Those would be red flags, depending on how they answered. And Lytenian's answer, at the wise old age of 27, he already was able, and even though he didn't even have much relationship experience, he was wise enough about people in general to answer the question in this way. He said, well, I would assume that something you needed you weren't getting from the relationship, and we would have to have a long discussion about that and come to a place where we could, trust each other more fully and be there for each other more fully. And it's like, okay, he passed that test. So I really liked that this new guy in my life was really thoughtful, and he asked a lot of the right sort of questions. I loved that he asked each of my husbands, what did they love about me? What's it like being with me? And hearing their answers was just so heartwarming. And, he asked about what each of my partners would want from him or expect from him or how they could benefit from, him entering our little polypod. And I loved that process. But over the course of several dates, he started running out of questions, and there just wasn't a lot else to interest me personally. He was such a great guy that I really wanted to fall in love with him because he's smart, and we both don't watch television, which I really loved, not attached to his cell phone all the time, which I really loved because I don't even use a physical cell phone. And he ate healthy, he exercised a lot, and those are really important to me. And then when I saw him without his clothes on, he was really muscular, and yeah, it was nice looking. It was really ironic what the point of incompatibility was that was kind of a deal breaker for both of us. It was totally unexpected. I would have thought with my history that he would have actually been perfect for me because he actually reminded me a lot of my third love. Back when I was, 19, we lived together for 2.5 years. I thought we were going to get married and have kids and have a family, and I was very much into him, and I spent all of my time just completely devoted to my third love. I was very much into him. So here I meet this guy 10 years later, little more than 10 years later, who's a version of my third love, a lot of the same passions and talent, really good at speaking the language of touch, just knowing how to caress. I could teach a whole class on how to caress. I call it the virginal touch that so many people have, where they just start kind of doing this. This is not sexy. This does not feel good or amazing. This makes me think that you have no idea what you're doing and that you're nervous. Yeah, so don't do this. Gentle caresses, soft caresses, changing caresses. Anyways, he understood all of that so intuitively. He was a really good kisser, and I wanted it to work. I really did. I just really crave the experience of falling in love with someone so much. It is the best feeling in the world for me. I get a lot out of dancing, drawing, writing. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm just so excited to get back to working on the project I'm working on, whether that's editing a video or writing a book or whatever it is I'm working on. But there's nothing that compares to falling in love. When I fall in love with somebody new, they just become my world, and I become so energized by every little contact with them, and it's everything that I do is easier. It's easier doing this right now because I fall in love with someone else. Not the guy I've been telling you about, but I've been telling you about him just because I went on 9 dates with him, 2 of which were overnights. And we didn't go all the way, but we went pretty darn close. I just didn't want to go all the way with him. I didn't want to because I learned something really important about myself. I'm not just a sapiosexual. I am specifically drawn to people who can expand my understanding of the world. For me, it's about that sense of expansion and growth, and my mind is just filled with this new information, this new person, this new perspective, all these new ideas. So it's kind of like a person has to be my teacher a little bit for me to fall in love with them. But they can't just, like, be arrogantly walking into my life thinking they, like, know something that they're going to teach me, because I've had plenty of people do that. That's not sexy. No, it's just kind of like when a person is just being themselves is automatically a learning experience for me. I read a lot of books. Really, if you want to learn lots of things, read lots of books. Watching lots of videos is not a substitute. It's a great supplement. When I encounter other people who've read a lot of different books than me, they know lots and lots of things, and they usually interweave with the things that I know. And that sense of, like, them filling in these little holes in my perspective or my understanding, that sense of, like, becoming more complete, that is what turns me on. That's what attracts me to a person. And so while this guy that I went on 9 dates with was really smart, he wasn't in his conversations teaching me a lot of new things. I mean, he did teach me a few things. I mean, we went on 9 dates. Obviously, we had a fair amount of compatibility to make it that far. There's been lots of people I've gone on 1 date with or 2 dates with, right? So 9 is a lot, right? So I was definitely pretty into him. And I was actually kind of baffled. Why am I not falling in love with this guy? Particularly because I've been feeling like really like kind of ripe to fall in love recently. Like I've been feeling like I'm so ready. Like there's space in my life. There's space in my heart. My current 2 marriages are very stable, and I have a lot of, just space because I'm not, busy working things out with them or something. Like we've got stuff pretty much worked out. I mean, it's never that simple, of course. There's always more things to kind of tweak, but I mean, it's at a state of like high stability. So everything is just ready, and I had a case of the wandering feet. I kind of really have a case of the wandering feet right now in general. Like, I think it's partly because of the pandemic and just being mostly at home for a whole year. I wanted newness. Apparently it takes somebody who's like really well read to give me enough newness, and they have to not just be well read and not just be smart. They have to be able to communicate it. So part of what I'm so attracted to is being a really good conversationalist. And being a good conversationalist doesn't just mean being able to string lots of words together for hours on end, because lots of people can do that. I can do that, obviously. But being able to say things that are truly original, having thought things through, having really introspected about yourself, having really carefully thought through the things that you've read. So not just reading the books and being able to regurgitate them, but being able to bring your own original thoughts and perspective to what you've read. Yeah, that's hot. In the end, we realized we really weren't compatible because my number one need was having somebody that I felt really intellectually connected with, because apparently that intellectual connection is really important for me for reaching an emotional connection, and I was having trouble emotionally feeling safe and connected because I was having trouble feeling really intellectually connected. And for him, what he really wanted was, and this is such a funny kind of story, but what he really wanted was somebody to have like really intense, long tantric sex with every single night. And don't get me wrong, I like sex. I even like having sex every day, but not for like 2 or 3 or hours, like, or all night. Like, that's just, like, I would like that on occasion, particularly with somebody as talented as this guy clearly was. I mean, I could tell from just his, like, gentle touch of the face that he was good. But despite that, I didn't really want it with him, and that's just too many hours out of the day. That's just flat out too many hours. Like, I spend 1 to 2 hours reading every day, 1 to 6 hours, sometimes up to 12 hours on whatever my passion project is at the time. I also spend time cleaning, making healthy food. I spend time playing games. I like to play Stepmania right now as one of my go-tos for getting exercise. And I play board games with people. I talk a lot, so I like to spend 1 to 5 hours socializing with somebody who's going to really enrich me in some way, either emotionally or intellectually or both, ideally. If some sex happens in the day, that's great, but I kind of think of it as more like a 10 to 30 minute jump start. We're having a great conversation, we have some great sex, we have a shower, then we like launch into some other activity. I don't think of it as like what I'm doing with the evening. I think it's really healthy and awesome to like live that kind of life. Like, I was actually really fascinated about the fact that he has had this type of relationship in the past. I asked him a lot of questions about it because it was fascinating, but it just wasn't for me. I mean, I get overstimulated, and I also just frankly get bored. Like, sex is only interesting for a short period of time unless you're gonna like bring lots of fantasies into it and all kinds of stuff, and like, I can't hold my attention just on physical sensation for that long. I mean, I could on a rare occasion, but not every day. So I explained this to him, and yeah, we just both quickly recognized that it wasn't gonna work. Even with the idea of him having multiple partners, it just wasn't gonna be
satisfying for both of us. And so we broke up. I mean, we never started calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend in the first place, but it was like totally peaceful because we both just recognized that it wasn't right for both of us.
After the breakup, I was a bit distraught, but I realized it wasn't mostly about him. It was actually mostly about the fact that I just really wanted to fall in love and it wasn't happening with him. I was really depressed in a lot of November, and I realized that in November, I'm either falling in love with somebody or I'm depressed, because for some reason I associate autumn with falling in love. It's not quite yet that snow time beauty. All the trees are losing their leaves, and they're no longer beautiful autumn brilliance anymore. They're just everything's starting to just look gray. So it's just a kind of a hard time of year when you don't have something special and new going on. Then Christmas happened, and a friend of mine, who's actually been a friend of mine for years, came and joined me and my family for a marathon of board gaming. I said, hey, at some point you should tell me why you decided that we shouldn't have a relationship, because I had kind of suggested it before, and he had decided that it wasn't a good idea. He's like, well, actually, I've reconsidered that. And I was like, oh, really? Well, you should come over soon and talk to me about it, sometime when my family's not there. And he's like, yeah, I would really like that. My heart just soared in my chest. And honestly, looking back on it, I can tell even just from how strongly my heart reacted to him saying that. I was already kind of a little in love with him then, but I really didn't realize it until last week that, yeah, I'm actually genuinely in love again for the first time since I met Greg in 2015. Greg being my other husband, if you don't know. My husbands are Lithenian and Greg. This is kind of a big deal for me. I need neurotransmitter high. Give me the dopamine and the serotonin now. I wonder if I'm going to leave that or if I'm going to look at that in the film and I'm going to be like, no, we're editing this out. So yeah, the main vlog update right now is I'm in love again. I am so thankful to my first love, who taught me that love is always worthwhile. Love will always lead to pain, but you're going to actually feel alive on the way. Would you like a whole life that feels gray and bland? Or would you like a life where you feel really alive and occasionally you get hurt like hell? My first love taught that to me, and when he broke up with me, I realized, yeah, it was the best thing that had ever happened to me that we'd been together. So even though I was in excruciating pain that he'd left me, it didn't matter because it had been worth it. I wouldn't take it back. So I'm kind of very highly aware that being in love again means that the whole pain roller coaster is about to start. I guess part of the why I'm able to have two husbands and why, I had long relationships even in my teenage years is that I'm just really dedicated. Just keep trying to make it work until my heart says, no, I don't want this anymore. I mean, I did leave my second love and I did leave my third love. But the rest of other times that I've started to fall in love with somebody and then it didn't go anywhere was because they decided to break it off. And my fourth and fifth loves are Lithenian and Greg, who I'm still with, so no breakups there. Although there was an almost breakup with Lithenian once when we'd been together for about 6 years right before I met Greg. That's a whole other story, which maybe I'll tell you guys about in another video if you want. If you want that, let me know in the comments. And that is the best way to contact me, by the way. If you have a comment, please do leave it below. I would love to hear from you guys. I was talking to a girlfriend last night and we were talking about what it means to be in love to each of us, and she wasn't really sure what it meant to her. And I noticed that a lot of people aren't really sure what it means to them, or they're not sure if they've experienced it. So it got me thinking a lot about what is my own definition in addition to what brings it on, which has been a question I've been asking since that guy I went on 9 dates with. For me, it's there's that warm feeling in my chest. There's the butterflies I get in my stomach when I'm nervous and excited about somebody. That's kind of I have a crush. I'm interested. I'm nervous. But then that warm feeling in my chest is okay, I care so much about you, and the littlest things that you do are affecting me a lot. Then the reverse is also true if I'm getting heartache because of things that they're doing or saying. So if they're saying, no, I won't be able to make it to your party next week or whatever, then if I'm getting a heartache sensation, then that's another sign that I'm in love with them. If I feel a lot of pain when the person needs to leave and I don't want to let them go, that's another sign. I think what gets difficult to define, though, is the difference between being in love and loving someone, which is perhaps a subject for a whole nother video because I have thought and written a lot about those concepts. But basically being in love has a tremendous amount of intensity. like sort of can't stop thinking about the person, thinking about them a lot in lots of different ways, wanting to talk to them, wanting to be intimate with them, wanting to show them things. I mean, that's a big sign for me, is when I start wanting to tell somebody all about myself. Like in general, I want to tell people about myself and be seen and understood. Obviously, that's why I'm making this video and why I have a YouTube channel and why my life is so public in the first place. Having one person who just really, really gets you is a whole different ballgame than having lots of people who know you somewhat. Fame is kind of like you have millions of people who know you a little. Having someone who loves you means having one person who knows all of you. I also, when I fall in love with somebody, I get paranoid about them leaving me, and I start thinking about, like, what can I do romantic to be what they would like me to be? I mean, I can't really help it, right? Everybody does that when they really want to keep somebody. How can I be more exactly what this person wants? And some people think that's like a bad thing. I don't believe it's a bad thing at all. I think that's a natural way of us expanding who we are. So if you try to become somebody else that you're really not for someone else in order to keep them, you're going to learn so much from that. I mean, that's what I did with my second love. I just changed everything about myself to try to be perfect for him. And I started doing a lot of things that I had never done before. And I learned so much from that experience. Like, it was a powerful experience. And when I left him, it was even more powerful experience because I was actually saying, you know what? No, that's not who I am after all. So I kept a few of the things that had changed about me. And I came away from the relationship with a lot more confidence because I knew who I was, because I had tried being someone I wasn't. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all to try on all kinds of new behaviors to try to impress somebody. You're going to learn from that. This video is probably getting pretty long. I wanted to share my joy, honestly. I'm really joyful a lot of the time right now. Since I realized I was in love, like, my heart just like keeps wanting to burst out of my chest, and I keep having really sexy fantasies going through my head. I feel super alive. I feel excited about so many projects. I'm getting back into things I haven't done in a long time. It's like intermingled with like, oh crap, what do I have to do to keep this guy, interested in me? Like, what do I do, like, in all the intervening time between when I see him and I'm, like, longing to see him? And thank God I already have 2 husbands because it would be unbearable. Yeah, I'm a really needy person. I do not like being alone at all, and I really hate being left even for the night or for a couple days. And I prefer when I'm in love with somebody to have contact like every day. That would be my preference. But this guy that I've fallen for, that is so not his preference. And like, we've talked about that, and that was a large part of why he decided we shouldn't date. But previously, when he said no, it was like largely about the fact that he needs lots of space. I just tend to like want to glom onto people and be like, no, mine. I convinced him that I'm like mature enough, strong enough, whatever, that I'll handle it. Hopefully I'm right about that, because I'm not entirely sure myself that I really will handle it. Like, I'm not sure if the intense feeling is just going to stop if I don't have enough contact, or if the intense feeling is going to get more intense. I don't know how much time he's going to end up deciding he wants to spend with me. For me, like, all of time and life stops when I'm in love with somebody, and yeah, I usually get a lot done, but none of it's planned. It's all revolving around wanting to be with that person. When they have to go do something, then boom, I'm doing something too, and it's beautiful. So I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I'm really glad it's happening. Learning so much about myself, why love is so important to me, and how it works for me too. I'm at that point, like in a mastermind game, where you have enough information, like at this point, like they've put enough pegs down, letting you know about what their little secret thing is behind the shield, that you're looking at the pegs and you're studying it, and you're like, I know I have enough information to understand this completely. My next row, if I think about this hard enough, will be the one that reveals the pattern to me completely. I feel like I'm at that place now with understanding myself relative to falling in love. That makes me happy. I love figuring things out about myself. And that's a large part of what makes me fall in love. So this is all kind of circular in some interesting way. Alright, well, if I didn't already know that this video was getting too long, my camera battery just decided to die. So let's wrap this up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new here. I make videos completely irregularly, but I make new content in general pretty regularly, so check me out on Twitter, come find me on Patreon. Even if you don't give me money, like, you can still follow me on Patreon and see all the things that I post there publicly, which is a lot, actually. But even for just $1, you get so much more content, so consider supporting my work there. Also consider getting one of my books. I have lots of books. I've published many books and board games, so
You can also find me on Instagram. I post pictures there. You can find me on Facebook. I post some insights there. I'm around. So even if I'm not on YouTube, I'm somewhere almost every day. So I hope to see you in the comments section with your thoughts, like, what's falling in love like for you? Have you ever been in love? What's your definition of love? Are you in love right now? If so, tell me what it feels like. Yeah, and also give me your questions. If you have questions about love, about polyamory, I will totally answer them in a future Q&A. It might take me a while to get to it, but it will happen. So go ahead, leave your thoughts and your questions below, and I look forward to hearing from you.